Jason,
Yeah.
you can hear me, and suddenly I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Give me 2 seconds to try to figure out. I thought I had everything figured out, and everything was fine. Nope. Nothing is fine.
Oh no. I don't know. Do you want me to go out and come back in, or let me see if I have to comment here.
What is going on? It was working until like the last second.
Oh man. Audio. You hear me now? You think it's on my end, or?
Okay, I'm gonna have to restart my computer. You
Okay.
okay, I am. Wow. Okay, can you hear me? Okay,
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Let me put up the that window. Okay. Okay, great. So
Cool.
Shalom. This was, we spent so much time. Okay. So I want to explain what we are doing here. So I was doing my Hebrew Bible in English stuff, and frankly, I have so much material out there for people who would be interested in something like that. That I kind of felt like I wasn't creating things. Michael says you need to start every live stream with a prayer against technical difficulties. We should actually, so we will start with a prayer. We should start with a prayer, but just to explain what's going on here, I thought that it might be better if we had some sort of Bible study, especially with somebody like Jason, who, despite what he says, check out his channel, The Almond Tree. There should be a link somewhere around here. But despite what he says, he actually knows the Bible really well. And one thing that I personally have noticed is that there are Christians who are very, very serious about their Bible study in ways that I am really happy about. But I think that there is a lot that they can gain from a Jewish way of looking at the Bible. And in fact, that's why I wanted to pull up this from John 5, where Jesus says, do not think that I will accuse you to the Father. There is one who accuses you, Moses, on whom you have set your hope. For if you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote of me. But if you do not believe his writings, how will you believe my words? And I've been throwing out this verse at a lot of Christians because I've been saying, well, if you do not believe Moses, then how can you possibly believe in Jesus? Jesus says you can't. So wouldn't it be good if you start from a place of actually studying Moses, understanding what he was saying, one of the things I discussed with Jason, possibly looking at a way we can look at our Bible study, is that Christians have, I think most Christians have a view that Christianity and the New Testament is a way of adding to and better understanding the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, and that Judaism existed in a less full form before Jesus, and with the coming of Jesus and the Gospels and the letters of Paul and Hebrews and all of Christian theology, that Judaism is better understood through that lens. And I personally don't believe that's true. In fact, I think the opposite is true. I think that what happens is if you have a full understanding of Judaism, you start understanding all the mistakes in Christianity. And these are two very different ways of looking at things, and I think they're ways that people can test for themselves. And so I think hopefully if Jason agrees with this, that we can try to understand the Hebrew Bible on first a level of, okay, what did this mean before Christianity? What did this mean before Jesus and the Gospels? And once we have that fundamental understanding, then we can try to see, okay, is Christianity adding to or taking away from a proper understanding of the Hebrew Bible? Well, first, Jason, why don't you introduce yourself, introduce what you're thinking, your response to the stuff I have said. One thing I do want to point out is I have pinned a link in the chat. Anybody who wants to come in, and so this is an attempt at having an internet Bible study. Anybody who wants to come on, please feel free to click on the StreamYard chat. We will try to monitor the text chat as well as we go along. And hopefully this will be something that will be interactive and people can interact with. So please, especially if you're willing to put on your camera and speak, click and come on in. But Jason, that's all you.
Okay. The first thing I wanted to say is I have a really bad echo every time I speak.
Let me check to see if my Khalil.
I can
sound
go out and come back in if you.
We didn't. Why is my sound off again?
I don't know. It was working fine earlier. It's just kind of hard to talk because every time I speak, I hear it right back in my ear.
I can't hear what you're saying.
Oh, you can't hear me at all?
We should have prayed for no technical difficulties. Like Roman says, is there a prayer for computers? One for golems. We work it. Trying to figure out what the problem here is because I thought I had it fixed.
Can I? Should I just exit out and come back in?
I don't know if.
Let me see. I don't know.
You can't say that God is limited.
Hear this, but I don't. I don't even know what the problem is. Jason, it's definitely on my side. It's not on your side. Because I'm not hearing my own computer.
Oh.
I will be back. Let me try something. Now I don't have Jason.
Sorry, I'm here.
Okay, I have no idea what the problem is. I'm thinking maybe it's with when I try to share screen.
Is it? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you fine. So, you know what?
I still have a really bad echo.
Oh,
but
it's echoing your own voice to you?
Yeah, through my headphones.
Okay, so if you go into the settings and audio, there's echo cancellation that might do it.
It's just not. I don't know why.
I'm just hearing you normally.
Let me try that. No, it's still doing it. Maybe it comes out. If that works. No, I still hear like.
Do you use some sort of? I'm using voice meter to. I'm using voice meter, and that can feed back.
Voice meter.
Well, if you're just using a normal sound setup, you shouldn't be getting. You probably have. Roman's right. Do you have YouTube and StreamYard open, or do you have StreamYard open twice?
Let me make sure I don't. I'm pretty sure it's just StreamYard. I had YouTube posted out.
And you're still hearing yourself twice?
Yeah. Every time I say something, it comes back. It's really annoying.
Ugh. Are you sure you don't have a YouTube open on any of the?
Yeah.
Are you using a Mac or a PC?
I'm using a Mac.
So I know even less about those.
I could leave and come back, but I didn't fix it. We could just try to go used to it.
If it's really bothering your, if it's going to make it hard for you to think, you want to try restarting your computer?
I could do that.
Yeah, try restarting your computer. Now I am hesitant to pull up my screen. Oh, you know what? What I'll do is I might ask Jason to pull up the Bible on his screen. He can do that. All these tech problems. I thought I had it all fixed. My streams were doing fine. Ben Cooper. Hey, Ben. Your mic is muted.
Okay. It's still doing it.
It's still doing it?
Let's go with it.
What's with all these technical problems?
It's the devil. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I think it is. We should pray and maybe it'll go away. You want to say a prayer, Jason? Well, first of all, introduce yourself and then you can say a prayer.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll give you used to the delay. So I'm Jason Schweitzer. I have my own channel called Almond Tree. 34 years old. East Tennessee. So I love studying the scripture. really excited to be doing this with Jacob. I feel like I can pick up on the Hebrew better. Sorry, it's really. Anyway, I don't know what else to say. I guess.
Well, what do you think? Well, why don't you say the prayer?
Okay. I'm gonna take my headphones out for this.
Good.
All right. We come before you, God, Father. We just want to honor you and we thank you for everything that you do in each one of our lives, and we thank you for connecting all of us and bringing us together to study your word together and to look at it with fresh eyes. We ask you that you open our hearts and our minds to receive what you've written in your word for us to gather out of it, Lord. And I just thank you for all the blessings you put on us. I thank you for giving us humility hearts and giving us wisdom to approach your word rightly and with fear and trembling and with reverence. And we just want to give you all glory and honor and praise in your name. We pray. Amen.
You forgot to ask for the technical issues to go away.
Oh crap. Father, I ask that you get rid of this stupid echo and all the other technical difficulties. I think it got worse. It did. Maybe it's. Because I'm telling you, Jesus, right?
It's because we are doing God's work that Satan is coming at us so strongly. Satan doesn't want this stream to succeed. Ben, did you want to say something, or you've muted your mic, so we can't hear you.
You muted your mic, so we can't.
Yeah. Okay, now we're getting an echo from you, Ben.
Okay, we're getting an echo.
I'm getting echoes all over the place. This is nuts.
So, what do you think about my idea about trying to understand the Hebrew Bible before the gospel and the Christian teachings, to see how we can understand them, and then comparing with what the gospel has to add to that?
I think that's a great idea. Like that verse you read earlier. It's kind of always intrigued me because it's like because that's what Paul and Jesus had to go off of was the old scripture. And so when they say something how the Old Testament pointed to Christ or something, I like to go to the Old Testament and see how I could actually come to that conclusion without having the Gospels, without having the epistles or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to tell you, I don't think you would, but that's just my that is my my bias there. So that was one idea that I had. Two other things I thought we would consider is the people in our little group who know about Paul Vanderklay, know about God 1, God 2, and I am going to put a link in to the video where Yosef spoke with Paul Vanderklay about God 1 and God 2. And one thing that he mentioned was that in Judaism, we already have an idea which I think actually better encompasses what Paul is trying to do with God 1, God 2. Obviously, there's only one God. I'm not saying there are two gods, but there are two different aspects of God, I believe, which are revealed to us through the holy names of God. And so I made this this little holy names thing to help people understand what I'm talking about when I talk about the holy names of God. And three of the most common names, and obviously since we don't pronounce the names, it's pretty hard for people to necessarily understand what we're talking about when we talk about the names. So there's the Tetragrammaton, which we never say in Judaism. We never try to say it, and some Christians do try to say it. But what I will be referring to as Shem Havaya, Havaya literally means being, and the Tetragrammaton is related to the word to be in Hebrew. Then there is the Shem, and that's what's usually translated in Christian Bibles to Lord. Then there's the word Elohim. It can have profane uses, but when we're referring to God himself, we actually don't say it unless we are saying it in prayer or something like that, or saying whole verses, things like that. So we would refer to that as Shem Elokut or Elahut, meaning the name of godliness, and that's what gets translated as God, because Eloah means God, and it can refer to it can even refer to human beings, as we can get into later. And then there is the Shem Adnut, and the word Adon just means master or Lord, and it is also used in profane ways. Adoni means my Lord, singular, and Adonai means my lords in the plural. And what happens is, usually in verses where the Tetragrammaton shows up, we actually will, when we are reading it, we will say Shem Adnut instead of, hey Michael, we will say Shem Adnut instead of the Tetragrammaton. Now, what also sometimes happens is, actually in the verse itself, God is referred to with Adnut. So when that happens, we will actually represent. So in fact, let me pull up Et Hanan. Actually, Jason or Michael, can you guys try sharing your screens? I don't want to share screen because I think my sound might go out. And pull up.
I don't think I can use an iPad.
Oh. So Deuteronomy 23. Deuteronomy 3:23. Okay, I am going to try sharing my screen again, and if that causes me to lose sound, I will then know what the problem is and never do it again. So let's hope this works and doesn't ruin everything. Okay, So, where were we? To stream. Okay. So, for example, here it says Ve'et Hanan el Hashem ba'et hahi le'amor, right? And I prayed to, and here it is the Tetragrammaton, right? The Lord at that moment saying, and then it says Shem Adnut, and then it's the Tetragrammaton, right? Ata hachiloti, right? So that's how he refers to God, right? First he says, like, this isn't the Tetragrammaton, it's the Shem Adnut. But since we wouldn't repeat Shem Adnut twice, instead what happens is here, instead of saying Shem Adnut, we would say Shem Elohim. Is that clear to everybody what happens there? Or no? Michael? Jason?
Yes. I think I wasn't paying attention while I was getting logged on. I missed a little.
So, we have the three holy names, right? That are very common. The first one, Shem Havaya, is the Tetragrammaton. The second one is Shem Elokut, which is usually gets translated as God, and Shem Adnut is the actual thing of Lord. It actually means God as Lord, literally my Lords. Okay? So what happens is, generally in the Bible, when we are reading something, so for example, here in verse 23, right, it says Ve'et Hanan el, and then it has a Shem Havaya ba'et hahi lemor, right? Then when we are reading it in synagogue, we will say Shem Adnut instead, because we never say the Tetragrammaton. But the next verse, right, it starts with the actual word Lord, right? So Shem Adnut. Yeah. Well, I can hear you. Yeah. I don't know if you're echoing. So when the Tetragrammaton shows up right after Shem Adnut, then, and anybody who knows the vocalizations will see that this is actually vocalized differently, because it's telling us not to read it as Shem Adnut, but rather to read Shem Elohim, right? So we read it differently because of what's around it. Is that clear? You guys understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
No? Okay. So when in Judaism, when we are reading through the Bible and we see things like this, right, we actually pay attention to it, because we have a belief that Shem Adnut is actually referring to God in his more agentic and merciful way, where he changes things and affects things not necessarily in the normal way, whereas when we speak about Shem Elohim, we would say that that's more God's justice, or the strict way, or the way that God created nature to be. So you could, in a sense, say that Shem Elohim is what PVK refers to as God One, and Shem Adnut, that agentic God of Sam Harris, is Shem Havaya. Is that clear to everyone? Okay.
I think I understand.
so when we look at Genesis 1, so you will notice that Genesis 1 actually only uses one of God's names. And actually, maybe I'll pull it up here. So in Genesis 1, it just says God. You won't find Shem Havaya there at all, right? And then when you look at Genesis 2, you will notice that suddenly it switches and starts using... is it in Genesis 2 that it starts using the Lord? Yeah, Genesis, I believe 2:5 is the first place that it uses... 2:4 also uses Lord. So if you look at Genesis 2:4, you will see in the Hebrew, you will see Ele toldot hashamayim va'aretz behibaram beyom asot havaya, right? So the Tetragrammaton Elohim, right? Shem. So what the rabbis explain is that God first created the world using the Arenic, right? Without God's intervention into creation through miracles, through his kindness, his mercy. And that was insufficient for the world to attain what God wanted. And therefore, he introduces the agentic Shem Havaya into creation. And that's why we have, so in Judaism, we have the concept of Adam Rishon, which is primordial man, which is man in his androgynous state. And that's why in Genesis 1, it talks about God made man in his image, male and female, he created them, right? And then we have Adam Rishon, we have first man, which is man separated from Chava. Okay? And so the primordial man and the first creation, that spiritual creation, which was only with Shem Elohim, right? Which was only with the Arenic God, then became real through Adam Rishon, and that's why there's the two creation myths that critical scholars would talk about. So that's the Jewish concept of how we understand the two names and the two creations, certainly in modern Judaism. So, did I say anything interesting?
Yeah.
Anything to say about that?
I think that makes total sense to me. And I think that tracks with what Paul Vanderklay says.
Okay.
Sorry if I got these pauses too. It's still echoing for me, so I can hear you clearly though. Just when I start talking, it's incredibly frustrating.
I'm telling you, Satan doesn't want you to know this stuff.
Yeah.
Either that, or I'm teaching false things, and God is helping me not to do that too much. And okay, so the third thing I wanted to bring up in our little study was the name of God and man and woman. So the name of God, anybody who's seen my little thing here, right? So the one of the names of God, it's one of the lesser used names of God, but it is used, for example, when we say hallelujah, right? Is just Yud and Hey, right? So it means praise the Lord, but it's using what you might call an abbreviated name of God, which is Yud and then Hey, as opposed to the Tetragrammaton. Okay? And so one thing that we can see, so in Genesis, when it says called her woman, right? So it calls her Isha with a Hey, right? And Ish, meaning man, has a Yud in it. So the first word is actually just Aleph and Shin, which is Esh, which actually means fire. The second word is Ish, and it has a Yud in it. And the third word is Isha, and it has a Hey in it. And so together they have the name of God, Yud and Hey, in their name, in male and female. And one thing I thought we might consider using this hermeneutic, and even though I haven't explored it personally myself, what I have noticed is that when we talk about Cain and Abel, so in Genesis 4:1, and let's go back to Genesis 4:1. So Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and so his name is Cain. That's Kuf Yud Nun, and I tried making it into English, kind of, so you could see the Kuf is like the Q, Yud is like Y, and Nun is like N. And so on the top left is Cain. So since you read Hebrew from right to left, it's Q, Y, N. Okay? So that's his name, Cain, right? And it says that she named him Cain because she said Kaniti. And the word Kaniti, it's comes from the word kone, which is top right, which is kuf or q, nun or n, and hey, right? But instead of kone, she said kaniti, I have acquired, and you will notice that there's no hey in there. There's two yuds there, though. And again, this is just something I may have heard before, but I don't remember it. But I thought it's something we can play with while we're looking at the story of Cain and Abel. So Cain, right? She says, Kaniti, I have acquired Ish, et, and it's very funny because et really does not ever mean from. Here it kind of means with, right? Ish et Havaya, with God, right? And so it seems to me that there is a specifically male aspect to Cain, and then Hevel's name, Vetosef Loleded, and she had her son, and she named him Havel, right? Hevel. And Hevel, actually, where it says in Vanities of Vanities in Ecclesiastes, right? The word there is actually Hevel. And Hevel is means like breath, right? So Hevel Piv, the breath of his mouth, is used somewhere in the Bible. I forget where. But that's why we say vanities or fleeting, right? Hevel Hevalim. The world, and so let me explain this picture here. So this is the Tetragrammaton, but the hey, the last hey, the fourth hey, is expanded, and it has Shem Adnut in it, because the Kabbalists explain that when you look at the Tetragrammaton, right, the masculine is from on top, and the hay on the bottom is the feminine aspect. And so the world in which we live in is Hevel Hevalim, right? It is actually the feminine that needs to receive the masculine from God and gestate it and bring it into being, right? And so Hevel, the word Hevel, represents the world in which we live in, because and that's what Ecclesiastes means when he says Havel Havalim Hakol Havel. Everything is in fact Havel. It's fleeting, and it's not eternal like God himself. And so sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Where were we? So Havel, right? So his name is Hevel, which I would say goes along with the feminine. And so I haven't gone through it, and I deliberately didn't like sit down and think through it, because I thought that we could actually explore this idea of masculine, feminine, and bringing the masculine into the world as a deeper level, because in Judaism we say that the Bible has 4 levels. There's the Pshat, which is the regular way in which we read it, and of course that can never be contradicted by any of the other 3 levels. Then there's Remez, there's a hint. And that's the type of hermeneutic that we're using here, is the hints from the words. Then there's drash, which is what a lot of people would, especially Christians, argue is how when the Gospels and Paul are referring to the Old Testament, that they are using the midrash. They are explaining one thing from another way. And then the last one is the Sod, which is the actual Kabbalah. A lot of people confuse Remez and Sod. So what we're doing here is not actual Kabbalah. The actual Kabbalah requires far more understanding. We're operating on the level of hint here. Am I making myself clear? Did I say anything interesting? Do you guys want to add anything to it?
So Abel, the feminine letter in his name.
Yeah. So I would say the name Hevel is in fact, and I would say the story, I mean, just thinking through it, if you have that hermeneutic that Judaism does about how creation is supposed to be understood, right? Which is that God first created an emptiness, right? And then he allows his light into it. And what is supposed to happen is that God's light, in a sense, conquers and conquers and permeates. That's the word I was looking for. Permeates the darkness that God first created, right? So, and there is a bit of flipping here, right? Because obviously there was God, and then there is the emptiness which he created, right? So the in order for creation to exist, and then God's light again starts permeating it, and that emptiness, that female aspect, then ultimately takes that light and, in fact, makes it more, makes it, reveals it to be where it always was, but with even greater light than it had before. Because, like it says, Yitron ha'or min ha'choshech, right? The greatness of the light over darkness. But you can also read that verse as the greatness of the light is from the darkness. Meaning that when you come out of the darkness into the light, it is actually brighter than if you had always been in the light to begin with.
I like that. That's really interesting. There's a lot of information here, so I'm trying to process it and piece it together. And my mind's kind of, as soon as you mentioned Ecclesiastes, I was like, wait, what?
So I'm gonna pull up. So we have Chad the alcoholic with us, and he says there's a wicked echo when Michael talks. White Muslim woman, you're late. Is there a schedule? So if you're subscribed to my channel, you should be you should be able to see my live streams. I actually had this scheduled from a few days before. And hopefully it's going to be a regular thing on Tuesdays at 6 Pacific time. Ben says, that's making it overcomplicated to arrange 4 levels of understanding. I see the Tanakh as either literal, poetic, symbolic, prophetic, or a combination of any of those. I have to disagree with that. I think that the Bible can be understood on multiple levels at once. So what do you guys have to say?
Well, could someone leave a comment? If they're getting an echo from me too, because I'm still hearing an echo on my end, and I'm hearing an echo from Michael as well. Whenever he talks. But you're fine, Jacob, for some reason.
Oh,
but everything else
I
echoes.
might be causing the echo. Ooh. See if I'm gonna mute myself and see if there's an echo when you speak when I mute myself.
Okay. No, I don't hear it anymore.
Yep, it's him.
It's Jacob's fault the whole time.
Yep, it's my fault that this echo is happening. And try saying something now, Jason.
Okay. It's still coming through.
Yeah, that's the echo.
Say something again.
Yeah, it's still echoing.
It's still echoing. Try now.
Testing. Still echoing.
So,
is it just him?
Okay, try now.
Testing. Okay,
Sweet.
now it's
That's
fine.
good.
Yeah, then
Sweet.
I can't hear you.
Oh no.
Oh,
Now it's echoing again.
Yeah, because
Okay.
when I can hear you, it's let me try.
Do you have like two computers set up? Oh no.
No. Well, I do have 2 computers. Try saying something now, Jason.
Testing. Still getting an
I
echo.
can't hear them.
Also me.
Oh, hold on. Let me try this. Okay, now try saying something.
Testing. I'm
there an
fine
echo?
now. No,
Yes.
we're good.
Okay, I think I figured it out.
Yay.
Okay.
Sweet. Okay, so I have some questions, but this might take it in a completely different direction. Or then we could come back. But is that all right if I ask?
Well, part of the point of this is to actually go wherever you guys want, because I don't want to just be lecturing at people.
So, what is the rationale behind "hey" being a feminine letter?
it comes from the Sephirot, the Tree of Life.
Okay.
And going into that would be very, very difficult.
Is it
but
the
it can
connection?
clearly be seen in the word Isha, right? So the word Ish has a Yud in it, and the word Isha has a Hey in it.
Yeah.
So the word Ish means man, and Isha means woman.
So when you're trying to understand the Hebrew text, it's not as much about like pronunciations as it is more about the how the letter's drawn out, almost like the imagery of the letter, or is it both?
It is both, and
Okay.
it's also Ben, who actually knows his Hebrew very well, he also says Hey is a weak letter, but Yud is also a weak letter, and Yud is considered more masculine. But in Hebrew, Hebrew is an abjad, unlike an alphabet. So in an alphabet, letters can be vowels or consonants. In an abjad, the actual letters are only consonants, and the vowels are inferred. And so in Hebrew, one of the ways we understand multiple meanings in the same word is that the consonants can be read in different ways. And we actually believe that every way that you can possibly read it, as long as it doesn't contradict the plain the Peshat, because nothing can contradict the plain meaning. As long as it doesn't contradict the plain meaning, you can also read it in any alternative way that the vowels, because the vowels can change the meaning, that each word has a basic meaning, and then the vowels can change that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know, like when it says serpent or whatever in Genesis 3, there's like plays on which vowels you use with that, I think, right?
Quite possibly. Where exactly in Genesis 3 are we?
Just when it talks about when it says the serpent,
Nachash.
Yeah.
So I Haya. That's. I mean. I'm thinking, like, for example, in other places, sometimes serpent. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's so much Nachash.
That's probably what Michael Heiser brought up, so that's why it's not.
Well, Michael Heiser, yeah.
well, no, but he was saying, it's like that there's some sort of, like the concept of a divine council member, and not just like a regular serpent or whatever.
Did you lose audio, Jacob? Just don't bring back that echo. Just don't do it.
Yeah, that was pretty wicked, man.
It was terrifying. I didn't want to talk.
Can you not hear us?
I don't think he can anymore.
Oh, man. I wonder what's going on with him.
I
thought he just needed a Windows update. It's still the thing I keep. One thing I saw.
You might be violating the rules of keep it simple.
You guys talk amongst yourself. I'm going to try restarting my computer.
There you are. We can hear you now.
Yeah, you can hear you going.
Yeah, we can hear him. I just don't think he can hear us for some reason.
Yeah.
So now
what were you saying about the serpent, though?
Oh, I just because I think he was saying that that I don't remember where it was, but that there's like multiple elements to that word depending on which vowels you put in it. So it's talking not just about like the serpent is like his shape, but also like a creature with serpent-like qualities, as in like because when it talks about like the serpent being shrewd and things like that.
It has the same root as bronze, so that's something people bring up.
Yeah, that was one, and they think that too. Like, that it's like shining, like because when it talks about like angelic creatures that are shining like bronze and things like that. So,
well, I mean, I think about it. I think about the story in Moses where he makes like the bronze snake, and I'm like, is that intentional? Is that supposed to be a pun? And I kind of think it is, but I don't know.
Probably. Is that similar to even like the idea of the seraphim or something, like the fiery serpent?
Yeah, I think that was the connection that I was.
I don't know how you'd get all the way there. That seems a little weird. Because
this is like going off of like the ancient Near East stuff, and that so you're reading everything in the Bible through the context of like ancient Babylon and Mesopotamia, and therefore like as if somebody from that culture was reading it, and then they would see all this stuff. So, which I mean,
if you're gonna play that game, then like, what is it? There is a sort of Babylonian cherub, but it's not like that. It's I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's got like a human face and it's got like a lion body, but it's not a snake. It's not a snake like at all.
Okay, but I just got. You guys can hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I got rid of voice meter completely, so hopefully this will work. So, what were you guys saying? I'm sorry.
We were just talking about the serpent in the in that Genesis passage, and saying how it wasn't what Michael was saying that it seems to be more layers there or something like that, and
I recently heard a telling of the story in Genesis from a rabbi. It was really a different presentation than I'd ever heard before. I can't remember the dude's name, but I used a piece of it in.
Okay.
I don't know what that was.
Somebody joined, and I guess he thought it was funny to, like, he was audio only. That teaches me that I should only let people who...
we had a StreamYard bomber?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Zion X is here.
Anyways, I can't remember the guy's name, but if you go and I used him in my the Origins of Feminism video, and I used a clip of him. It's like near the end, but there's a link to it in there. And the story, the way he told the story, it was like it was talking a little bit about what you guys are talking about the serpent being part of a kind of a divine council, and then it was like more talking about it, like the bronze thing that you were mentioning. But then he also mentioned that the snake or whatever it was actually was different before, where it actually had legs, and there's just this whole different telling, which I thought was interesting.
It sounds like it might be Michael Heiser. He talks about the Divine Council a lot. So Ben points out Nachash is snake and Nechoshet is bronze. And that is something that later on when Moses makes the bronze snake, right, which later gets called Nechoshistan, I think, or something like that. I forget the name. And that's something that's actually alluded to, I believe, in the Gospels, where Jesus says being lifted up, and I'm not sure if it's explicit or it's something Paul Vanderklay I think said once.
No,
but
yeah, he definitely references it. So there's the bronze serpent in or somewhere in Numbers. He makes that, and it's called like I always said Nehushtan, but I guess that's wrong. Nahashtan or something. I don't know how you say it.
Nehushtan, maybe. Yeah,
Nehushtan. And then
it's with
brought
a
up.
het.
And then it says they start worshiping it around the time of Hezekiah, I think.
Right. Yes.
And then Jesus makes reference to it and says, I think it might be in the Gospel of John, and says when the Son of Man will be lifted up, like that. I don't know. He says maybe it's not in John. I don't probably remembering it wrong.
Peterson was making reference to that. Well, he was on that kick for a little while.
Well, when I had my discussion with David, who is kind of a messianic, and it was a very interesting and long discussion. It was like 4 hours long. One thing he pointed out was that because we were talking about my whole concept of Jesus being Moshiach ben Yosef, and how Nehushtan also became an idol, and he's like, that could be a Christology in my understanding of how Jesus came and then became an idol. You know what I mean? So, yeah, not your typical Christian understanding of it, though.
I
don't know how to understand it,
but it might be. I don't want to derail whatever you have going on here, but this question was raised this morning for me. I was thinking about the question was why was it how do I put this? So we pay a lot of attention to detail when it comes to these stories, and like I notice like sometimes we'll start to hone in real detail on certain aspects of these stories. But one aspect I've not seen anybody really go into is why didn't Adam and Eve have children before the fall? Why didn't the children come until after the fall? Is that significant?
I would say definitely yes. Various people have various things to say about that. Yeah, and I mean,
sex is bad, you dirty dogs.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
No.
For them to have children before the fall.
Well, I mean,
there's no way to gauge how long or short that period of time was.
Well, Jewish tradition says it was actually 4 hours.
Okay, well, I was just saying. I thought it was the next day. I figured it was I kind of figured that hopefully they didn't screw up on the Sabbath, and then it was the next day.
Well, that's the thing. Actually, they screwed up on. They were made on Friday, and they screwed up before Shabbat began. Because if they had not screwed up until Shabbat began, then there would never have been a fall at all, and everything would have been perfect. Yeah.
And then if it were perfect, would there be need for more children?
So, I mean, you're talking about a biblical counterfactual. There are people who say, I mean, you can read the Genesis story on many different levels, and there is one level which kind of says that Eve recognized that, in fact, she needed to. They needed to be, and I forget where I read this. It might actually be a Muslim understanding of it, or it might be a Mormon one. That it was necessary for them to eat of the fruit of that tree in order to have children. Like, so, okay, it's called the tree of knowledge, right? And it says that Adam knew his wife and she became pregnant. So there is a connection there between the intimacy and knowledge, right? And there are, I mean, I would have to research it, but there are definitely various things people say regarding how exactly that that works. And yeah, I would have to research it further. It's not. Yeah.
I kind of had an idea that it was on the day after, just because, or the day after the day of
Creation,
because the circumcision happens on the 8th day, and like, I mean, I didn't, you know, it does seem like I think a lot of Jewish sources think the garments that were provided for Adam and Eve came from some sort of animal. So, like, that it was, I mean, you know, I guess you could say this is a Christian idea in the sense that it was a substitutionary death of the animals that, and then, you know, in the same way that circumcision is kind of, you know, it's a little bit of spilling of blood instead of, like, killing the person. Like, you know, because Moses, when his sons weren't circumcised and God was going to kill him, it's like...
Yeah, that's a very different way of viewing circumcision. I mean, there is that... I don't want to over-discount the concept of blood being important, because blood is something important in various Jewish rituals.
Yeah.
But what we would say is most important about the ritual of circumcision is the fact that God has created the world in a way that is imperfect, and has given us the capacity to perfect it through making changes, right? Because obviously if God just wanted babies uncircumcised, then he could have created them without foreskins, right?
So can I ask a question concerning that as well? So circumcision is like a symbol for other things. Is that right? Even in Jewish tradition, or okay?
So we would actually say it's an emblem. So the difference between a symbol and an emblem is a symbol is something that represents something else, whereas an emblem is an expression of something else.
Yeah,
so
it just seems like it was like when you take a cow and you like put the mark on it with
branding,
brand. Yeah, that seemed like what it was. It's like, these are my people.
It is. Yeah. So we actually refer to the khatam, the signing chotem of the brit, of circumcision. And it is a sign, right? But it's so yeah, I mean there definitely is that concept to it of a brand, but the question becomes again, why is it something that we have to do, right? That if I had a son, I would have the obligation of doing, rather than how. So there's a famous, I believe it's in the Midrash, where someone asks, I believe Rabbi Akiva, about circumcision, and he points to bread, and he says, well, what's better, what God created, which is wheat, or what man creates, which is bread, right? And God, and this is also by wine as well. And we talked about like the importance of bread and wine in Judaism is that it is not just what God creates naturally. It's not just what man creates, but it is our taking of something that God created, refining it and making it even better. And that's one of the reasons we actually say that, when the Messiah comes, bread will grow on trees, right? Because at that point, the work will be done, right?
So like a reciprocal participation there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So man is kind of still a work in progress then, you would say?
Well,
right?
Yeah, until Mashiach comes, until the Messianic era is here, right? The world is incomplete.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
How much of a work in progress though? Like, are we complete when we have cyborg arms? Like, what? How does this work out?
So, I mean, perfection. The coming of Mashiach is that perfection. All of the prophecies that Christians say will happen during the second coming. The land will be filled with knowledge. The wolf will lie with the lamb. There will be world peace. Right, all of the great promises of the coming of that day when justice. What?
And there'll be no ocean.
There'll be no sea.
Oh yeah, it'll be one big river. That's true.
This to me sounds like what's going to happen is we're all going to be uploaded into a computer, and then we'll be able to see loaves of bread grow from trees.
Yeah, there we go.
That is a very Gnostic way of looking at it, because
I'm not saying that's what I know. I'm just saying. I mean, how much more Gnostic is that than what all the other stuff we say about what we think we know?
Well, part of what both Christian belief, and I think part of what John was doing with Jesus eating the fish, and the Jewish belief in the physical resurrection, which is the Pharisaic belief that the Sadducees did not have, is that we're not going to be disembodied souls. That we are actually going to experience physically, so that we will sit and eat of the Leviathan and the Shor Habor. So the Leviathan and how do you translate Shor Habor? There's a specific ox which is supposedly going to be what?
Behemoth or
yeah, I guess it. Yeah, let me. I can find
in Job, right? The two creatures in the Book of Job.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, most Christians say behemoth.
What?
Okay.
What's the Jewish word for matrix?
Okay. Now we're back on.
The Omphalos, right? Like, matrix. Or is that a Latin word? It sounds like a Latin word.
I'm just thinking of that one weird part.
Omphalos means belly button.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? Would that be the same thing? The Matrix. There's a weird verse in my. So this I read New King James, but this is how it translates in mine. But there's a weird verse in Isaiah where it says, "From the matrix of my mother, you made mention of my name," and it might be that same word, belly button. Let me figure.
Matrix.
That's what mine says, but it probably is just translated funny to sound more poetic, I assume. Isaiah 49:1. The Lord has called me from the womb, from the matrix of my mother. He made mention of my name.
49:1.
Yeah, 49. But I don't know if that's. I doubt that's not the Matrix Chad is talking about, though, right? He's talking about the upload of your consciousness into the.
Oh, like imi. No, the word
okay.
just means intestines.
Okay. It's not belly button.
Internal organs, inward part, a belly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We've gotten way off topic here. We've taken a lot of turns, but
I was just being a goofball. I'm gonna get rolling though. Thank you for letting me crash your party.
I hope you're feeling
good.
better.
I like this.
Feeling a lot better.
Glad to hear it. Thank you for coming.
Toodles.
No, I actually, like, for me, I wanted this to be as interactive, and wherever you guys want to go. The only reason I brought up those things that I did bring up was I didn't want to sit here quietly, but wherever you guys want to go with this, we can go.
Okay. So, I just wasn't sure how focused you wanted to be, because it's like we jumped from masculine and feminine to snakes to circumcision to, like, it's been a journey, but it's been good.
No, as long as we are seriously discussing the Bible and trying to understand it better, and
okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. What are you gonna say, Roman?
Oh, so there's this thing with Jesus is the bronze snake, right? And okay, so the bronze snake is worshipped as an idol. They have to tear it down, but also it works. It does heal people, right? But there's another thing which is in Revelation, where they talk about Jesus. He sees this vision of Jesus, and he has feet of bronze. And I'm like wondering, is this the reason? Is this a back reference to this thing with Jesus the snake? I don't know.
So feet of bronze, I believe it's from Daniel, right? Or is that feet of clay?
Feet of iron and clay. Yeah, he has he's got a bronze plate or something like this.
I think it says in Daniel later, when it's the one who appears like a son of man, it says that his appearance is like burnished bronze, which I think in Revelation, same thing. It's not saying like, it's not specifically like the material of bronze as opposed to other things, but like that it's shiny, like in the way that it's like bright. It's like the bright shiningness or whatever.
It's definitely
like
a
fire.
Little passage.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you shine a light over bronze, it looks like fire.
Okay.
I think.
I mean, it's understandable. Like if you said this, because they also say like he has a voice like running water or something, right? It's a very
and I think all those it's all things where it's saying them in metaphors. It's like bronze, it's like rushing water. So it's all just it's trying to use flawed, limited language to describe very a transcendent vision. So. I think that's the way it is of all the visions of, of the prophets, and any time they encounter anything really supernatural, they have to. We don't have the actual words for things that aren't describable on Earth, so we have to use metaphors.
Doesn't it say we'll all speak one language? Right?
So Zephaniah 3:9 is basically the motto of me and this channel. It says that we will have that God will turn over a pure speech, and there is this idea that Babel will be undone, right? And we will be able to speak clearly to each other. With a universal translator, of course. But and really, I mean, the Jewish assumption is kind of that that language will in fact be Hebrew. Yeah.
Well, I'll throw out this idea.
I thought it was going to be Arabic.
I always thought it was. I thought it was going to be something like humility, which is no language at all, but it's just because just from my encounter, it's almost been easier to talk to people that speak a different language than English sometimes, because it's like you have to humble yourself to get back to basics or something. And it's almost like you approach every language with the spirit of humility. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
your view of humility is just bad.
Is it?
It is.
Well,
okay. So when Moses says, when he writes, right? So if your understanding of Moses, when God tells him to write, he is the humblest man in the world,
Yeah.
right? If your understanding of that humility is A, he shouldn't have written that, or B, that later when he has his conflict with Korach, right? And he says, like, Korach wants to be the leader, and he says, Rav lachem b'nei Levi. He says it's too much. You can't be me, right? Moses. So a Jewish understanding of the word humility is not that you have what we call shiflut, right? Which is this poor self-esteem, right? Or an understanding of who you are which is fallacious. Humility, at least the Jewish understanding of anava, of humility, is that you have a true understanding of yourself, which includes being able to know that ultimately everything we have is from God, right? And if I am smarter than somebody else, and I'm smarter than most people, that's not a non-humble thing for me to say. It would be an egotistical or gaiva, right? A proud thing, right? Pride is the sin. Would be to say, well, I'm smarter than people, then that means I'm somehow morally superior to them or better than them, because I didn't cause I had no influence whatsoever on my IQ, on my ability to, pass IQ tests faster than, there are very, very good people who don't have my IQ, and that's not a matter of me being able to boast over it. There's nothing to boast about, right? Yeah. And that is a true understanding of humility.
I think we're on the same page. I mean, I don't think it's a like where you just are demeaning to yourself all the time. I don't think it's that at all. When I was talking about in forms of language, I meant just not that it should never be written down, because you have to have language to understand each other, but you have to where it's like the even so just if we just stick with the English language, it's like people have those, what do they call them, those like I can't even think of the right term now, the words they listen for, like if like some people, if you say the word feminism, like a flag goes up, and then it's like they're ready to cancel you at any moment.
Trigger words.
Trigger words, yeah. So it's like if you're actually speaking to someone humbly, you would kind of let those trigger words slide, because you think, oh, this word, the way they're using this word might not be in the same context I use it. So then that's what I mean. You have to approach language with some sort of form of humility, not like where you're degrading yourself at all. And you might have a better understanding on the word than they do, and that's fine. But it's like you have to kind of humble yourself to other people's level. Does that make sense? I guess that's the way I'm using it.
Well, I would say it is very. There is a lot of damage that probably gets done by people who communicate without thinking about how difficult it actually is to understand other people, or for them, if you're not aware of that. I mean, that's basically like the problem with Twitter, is that everybody's just saying how obvious things are that are obvious to them and not obvious to somebody else. It's,
but some of them are wrong. Like
that's true. But but if you want to tell, which Twitter's not the place to ever do it, but if you want to tell somebody that they're wrong, you really need to be able to understand what they think and why. You need to understand why they're convinced of their viewpoint, so that you can tell them why it's wrong.
Like
correct.
Like even right now, I feel like Jacob, you are humble. Like you're acting in humility to humble yourself to try to communicate Hebrew to me, to where like I could say, or I could have some word that I read in scripture and I always think it to mean this one way, and you're like, actually it doesn't mean this, but you have to kind of almost like humble yourself to my understanding to try to bring me up to yours or something. Does that make sense? Like
no. That's the thing. Okay. That has nothing to do with humility, because look, I know more Hebrew than you do. I also know more Farsi than you do. I'm guessing I also know more Spanish than you do.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. But that is not a measure of my worth or your worth. And if I know that I know more of something than you do, right? I'm not humbling myself by imparting knowledge, if it's true knowledge. I am only, the only humility involved would be me recognizing that just because you don't have the same knowledge doesn't make me some sort of better person, and it doesn't. But I mean, it is at the same time. It's incredibly important for me to recognize. Okay, I know this, and X or Y doesn't. And even if I understand what they're misunderstanding, which hopefully I will, that doesn't change the truth of the matter, right? If somebody, like, people often use words in the wrong way, and I, having a much better vocabulary than most people, and I'm sorry, I just do, I often understand how they're misusing that word, and I could explain it to them, and I often do, and they get pissed off, but that's beside the point. But none of that makes me a better person or worse person than them, because that's not how you gauge if somebody is a good person or not, is how well they know the dictionary. Like, so what if I know the dictionary better than you do? So what if I know Hebrew better than you do? Does that make me a better person than you are? No.
Yeah, I understand. I'm not sure where the wires are getting crossed here. I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. So how is it me humbling myself to explain something to you that you don't know?
Because you could just write me off and not even attempt. Like, there's a verse in scripture where I think it's in one of the Psalms, and it says God humbles himself to behold the things that are on earth, or something like that.
Which verse? I would want to look this up.
Let me see. Let me see here. It says it's Psalm 113. Verse 6.
Psalm 113, 6?
Yeah. So the way I always understood that is God kind of, I mean, it's like you talking to a child. Like, you kind of have to, you don't expect the child to rise up to your level. So you kind of almost like, in order to communicate, in order to interact with the child, you would kind of lower yourself to their level and teach them. Like you said, you don't do away with the truth or anything. You just try to teach them the truth, but you kind of have to come to their level or something like that. That's how I kind of was perceiving it in my head, but maybe it's
the zone of proximal development.
It's verse 6. I guess so.
Well, that's just the Jordan Peterson thing. That's the saying, like, when you talk to kids, you always actually talk to them at slightly above where they would speak, and so you're always pushing them to grow, but they understand what you mean. But we just do it naturally. It's not like you really have to try to do it. So
yeah,
I mean, I guess, unless you have deficiency or whatever. But
so that's the same way I kind of conceptualized humility in the same way Moses had it too. Is he was probably more knowledgeable than all the other people there. I mean, God was speaking him directly, but he was still kind of humbling himself in order to deliver it to the people that were more ignorant or something. He was kind of coming down the mountain to give it to them, instead of just sitting up on the mountain and waving at them from the high place. He kind of had to come down.
Yeah.
So that's how I understand it. But he wasn't like degrading himself, I guess, by coming down. Just kind of, I don't know.
So the word mashpili, first of all, it's a very weird word because it's in a strange poetic form. But mashpil is the causative of shafel, which means low. So literally here it's who brings himself down to see. Yeah.
Okay. Is that kind of similar to what Moses, you would say what
No,
Moses
that's
was doing? Or no? Okay.
No. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
All
a
right.
completely different word. That word is anava, and I can find where was Moses? It's actually isn't it in Numbers 12? Moses humblest man. Yeah, 12:3. So let's go to Numbers 12.
All right. What is very... Okay, yeah. Anav, I guess.
So it says, V'ha'ish Moshe anav, and so this is Strong's Roots 6035. And they're saying it's like ani, which it is related. Well, okay. I mean, anav and ani. Well, I wonder what Ben has to say, but we just appreciate you not getting on a high horse. So ani and anav are related. I mean, this gets into a 2-letter roots, 3-letter roots. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know how much you guys want to get into the Hebrew of this. The word anav has the letters are ayin, nun, and vav, and vav is a weak radical, and there is a debate among linguists and rabbis and basically everybody to what extent Hebrew is a 2 radical or 3 radical language, because most Hebrew words have 3 radicals. Some of them only have 2 radicals, and radical just means consonant here, okay? And so, for example, shin lamed mem, shalom, right? It has 3 strong radicals, and it is used in many different ways. So it can mean whole. It can mean to pay, right? It can mean a lot of different things which are related. It can mean peace. It can mean just your health. Like, to ask somebody's shalom means to ask how they are. Okay? And so, no. This is anav with a vav. Ben was thinking of anav with a bet. So the two radicals ayin and nun, and then sometimes it's with a yud, which is a weak radical, and sometimes it's with a vav, which is a weak radical, and so you can say that the two are related, like Ben is saying, right? Ana from poverty or afflicted. So whether or not these are two different, and this is why Ben is actually writing a book, which Roman is turning into a program with Gavin. Thank you. But Ben is writing a book trying to called Counting Roots, where he's trying to distinguish between all the various roots. But yeah, it gets into a whole question of, are you going to say that these are the same word and just used differently, or are you going to say that these are two different words that are somehow related? And yeah, I don't know how much somebody who's not interested in Hebrew cares about these details.
Not that much.
I don't.
I've been awake since 4:30 in the morning, so.
Well, and it's like almost 10 right now.
Yeah. Yep.
It's almost 11 for me. I'm good to go though.
Have you been awake since 4:30?
No, I have not. No, so I'm great.
Yeah. So I don't really consider Anna as meaning humble very often. Yeah, I always thought. I mean, I did not consider Anav. I mean, ultimately, if you're going to go with the two radical thing, then, I mean, Ayin Nun obviously has, but you can also say that it's related to the word to answer, and Anav and right. So, yeah, this gets into a lot of.
Yeah, that stuff's always intriguing to me when things are related, and that's why I'm like, but I know that gets into, I don't always know what to do with that. It's just some of those things where I'm like, okay, now I got to think about this for a while.
Well, so, I am one of the people who believes that you can, in fact, relate all words with two radicals. If you have two strong radicals in the same order, I say that any words which have two strong radicals in the same order are somehow related. See you later, Michael.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, this gets into a whole debate of how much you want to get into the Hebrew of stuff. And part of the reason for this Bible study was I was hoping to make it so that even people who don't want to deal with as much of the details of Hebrew as I get into in my Hebrew Bible and English stuff would still be able to comprehend and be involved.
Yeah, that would make sense to break it down. Do you have anything you want to say, Roman? You've been quiet for a while.
I guess you guys are talking about humility. I do think about this passage, and I swear I've seen this in like 3 or 4 different places, and I'm pretty sure it shows up in Way of the Pilgrim, and I'm pretty sure it shows up in some Buddhist stuff, and I'm pretty sure it's in the Talmud somewhere. But it talks about humility, and it talks about what's humble is like the earth, right? The earth is humble, not because it's doing anything in particular. It's not about what it's doing. It's about what, like, people can put anything on the earth, and the earth sort of takes it. And this is not necessarily, right? I know some people don't like that idea, right? But that's kind of how humility is, that it can tolerate a lot, right? And Jesus can tolerate a lot, right? We see him on the cross, right? And I think that's the kind of thing that humility is about. The humility is really about this. If you're like, oh man, I'm so hurt by everything you do, that's not very humble. If you're like, oh man, I demand all these things, that's not very humble, right? But if you can accept, if you can be low, that's humility. And by being low, right, the earth holds everyone up, right? And so this is again, by not doing anything in particular. And this is sort of the way I think about it, about what humility really is.
Well, going back to what we were talking about, the masculine and the feminine, right? So there is this concept of receptivity and being below and empty in order to be able to receive, right? And the ground, right? It is in fact. So if we go back to this here, right? The ground is in fact the lowest part is the ground, and like that's what I was trying to illustrate here with the adnut being in the last hay, which is malchut. Let me stop speaking so much Hebrew. But when you look at the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life, in fact, we do say that Malchut, which is the lowest sphera, is the ground upon which man stands, and that is the feminine which receives from everything. I hope that made some amount of sense.
In that demonstration, though, that was the last.
This one?
The last hay is kind of what you're saying. That's the ground that.
Well, yes, and so when God's kingship comes all the way down, right? So let me actually pull up a tree of life. Tree of life.
So this is the Tetragrammaton. What's under the next hay?
That's the Shem Adnut. So that is. So we have the three holy names.
Okay.
Right. So the what we usually say is the Shem Adnut, right? We call God Lord, and that's why it gets translated to English as Lord. So So
why is it in a that's a yod, right?
Yes.
So this is Adonai,
Adonai, my lords. Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Why Adonot?
Why Shem Adnot? Because ultimately what we want is for God to be Melech al Kol Haaretz, to be the king of all the land, right? So once you bring God's lordliness all the way down and you make God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, that is the completion of creation.
So is that okay? Sorry, I was about to ask a question. I was going to derail it.
No, go ahead. Ask.
Is that kind of the Jewish idea of Messiah then?
Yes.
God. Okay, so it's not a specific looking for one man necessarily. It's just God being all in all creation, right?
So the coming of the Messiah is when God is king over. Why am I not finding? Why is the Kabbalist? Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is.
I've seen this before.
Yes. So this is the Kabbalistic tree of life. And you will notice that actually there are 11 circles here. Let me make this. So you will notice there's actually 11 circles here, while there's only 10 sphirot. And the reason for that is that when you show Keter, you don't show Da'at. So in the center, you'll see on top is Keter, which means crown. Then there's next one down is Da'at, which is knowledge, right? Like the tree of knowledge. The next one is Tiferet, which is beauty. The next one down is Yesod, which means foundation. And the last one down is Malchut, which is kingdom, kingship. And Keter and Malchut are superimpositions of each other. So when you have Keter Malchut, when you have the crown of kingship come all the way down, that's when you have completion of the world. Did that make any sense?
I think so, but I'm just trying to me that almost seems like theosis, right? Is that kind of the same idea of theosis?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so.
But theosis for the cosmos, not for a person, is the idea.
Well,
for both.
Yes.
Yeah.
So First Corinthians 12, right, is the oldest written version of this idea that Judaism has, which is that, in fact, the whole body of humanity, right, is made up of many different people, and each of us has our role. And when we are properly oriented, then we are going to, in fact, make God the king of everything. And so the only thing people might not like about this is we say that Israel, right, it can also be rewritten as Li Rosh, which means literally my head, right? And Israel is Reshit, is the firstborn of God's creation, is the head of that body, which is humanity.
The head of that body, which is humanity.
Do Jews consider their coming Messiah to be worshipped like God? Chas v'shalom, no way. No.
Something. So the head of that body is something like Adam, except.
No, it's Israel as opposed to the Gentiles.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So the rest of the nations make up the body of humanity,
of the earth.
And Israel is the head.
Okay. So Israel as a whole nation would be the firstborn.
Yes.
Instead of just Christ is how you would see it. Okay.
Yeah, it says Beni Bechori Israel, my firstborn son is Israel.
Okay. All right, I'm trying to get context. I've never actually understood this or talked with Jewish people to actually understand what the coming of the Messiah would look like to them. So in that case, then how would you even recognize it when it did come? You would just see all of
it? If you have to ask, and this is where the disconnect is between Christians and Jews, right?
Yeah.
How do I know the Messiah has not come? The Talmud gives an example. You put your hand in your pocket to get a nickel, and you get a dime. That's how you know the Messiah has not come.
Why can't you break that down? You put your hand in your pocket to get a nickel, and you get a dime.
Because the world has not yet been perfected.
Okay.
Right?
So,
you don't have perfect knowledge. The world is not perfect. The Messiah has not come. So when a Christian says Jesus is the Messiah, if they really meant, because when you read the prophecies of the Messiah, it's very clear these things have not been completed, right? I mean, even Christians, there's a reason why Christians believe in the second coming.
Yeah, that's fair. The reason I asked that too is because, and I think I've thought this for a long time. It was kind of a concern to me, and I think I've heard Luke Thompson mention as well. I think he says something like that, in Christ's second coming, a lot of Christians are going to miss it, kind of the same thing. They'll miss what
he's a universalist, isn't he?
Yeah, but that being, I think the idea is that we think so materialistically. If theosis actually happened, a lot of Christians are looking for Christ to come materialize, or like the clouds split apart and this man float down or something. Which I don't know that's a lot of Christians, but that probably, at least in my circles, that's probably what people would conceptualize it, rather than actually some sort of Christ consciousness manifesting in the earth and theosis actually happening. And
do you think for a second like theosis could happen to you and you wouldn't notice? like for a second you believe this?
Like how could theosis happen to you and you don't know it?
I'm not okay. No, this gets into like I guess the whole other thing of how people conceptualize the rapture and the second coming and things like that. I don't think that. I mean, I think you would know when theosis happens to you, but I think personally you probably experience it in this life. Like we talk about that, like you get tastes of things, you get little glimpses of it and things like that. But I don't.
I mean, it could be subtle,
I don't even know that most
right?
Christians. I don't even know that a lot of Christians believe. I shouldn't say a lot. I never heard about theosis until I got in this Discord server. I believed in it because I read the scriptures, but I never heard it taught in church at all. And what most circles I was in, the coming of Christ and the rapture is kind of just you disappear. It's just kind of like the Left Behind movies, to be honest. Or something like that, which is not like theosis.
There's a literalism in Protestantism, which is kind of silly. I'm sorry. Ben says, maybe I missed it, but why is your picture of God's name showing a man behind it? Because you don't think he has a form, right? Yes, but I do believe that we were made in the image of God, and one way we can see that we were made in the image of God is you see that God's name is reflected in the human body.
I guess what I meant to was to the fact that where people would miss something like, I don't know if theos is the right word, is where they would miss seeing they'd miss seeing God in another person or something, where Christians would be looking if it is something like God coming in the form of theosis. Most Christians aren't looking for Jesus in their brother. They're looking for Jesus to come through the clouds. Does that make sense?
Well, that's because most Christians believe like Jesus is like born of a virgin and this superhuman thing that we have no connection to.
Come on.
What?
He is, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, see, like I even
like if Jesus is born of a virgin, right? Then he is not something you can embody in any way, right? So when Jesus says, "I pray that you have a relationship with God like I do," like. So is he praying that you be born of a virgin?
So, like, do you feel the same way about Adam? I haven't been made of clay, so I can't take part in Adam's sin. This seems a little silly. This still seems silly to me.
If the virgin birth of Jesus is important to who he is.
I mean, I do think it's important to who he is. But I think it's important in a different way, and that it's about repentance, and it's probably a little bit about humiliation, right? Like, to be frank with you, right?
How is that?
Well, it's a subtle miracle, as you pointed out, right?
Oh, so you think... Okay, so I personally think that the whole virgin birth thing has to do with... I actually think he was known to be a bastard, and that's why Christians had to clean it up with the virgin birth. And yeah, if Jesus was born a bastard, right, that would actually make more sense in my conception, because he would be of lowly birth. But Christians couldn't accept a Jesus who was actually of lowly birth, so they turned him into the son of a virgin.
Well, I mean, I think That's part of the thing, right? So he's this, right? He's this high person, and he's brought low by a lot of things, including people thinking he's his parentage is wrong or whatever. And same thing with.
But
with
why shouldn't his parentage be lowly? What's wrong with a bastard?
What is there anything wrong with it?
I don't think so. I don't think a bastard can not be a great. And this is actually one of the teachings of the Mishnah. It says, "Mamzer Talmid Chacham, a wise, a scholar who is a bastard, mamzer, right, deserves more respect than the chief priest if he is an ignoramus." And this is a Pharisaic teaching against the Sadducees, who thought, no, bastards are worthless.
So to me, right? What is this?
The virgin birth was because God is the real father, and it also doesn't pass down the sin nature and curse from Adam. I mean, this is basically the Catholic belief.
Is that so? What? Well, what I was thinking, this is where my mind was going, is that it's not even so much about. I almost thought the virgin birth was more about theosis than it was about Christ, as an emphasis on that you could say the church, or you could say Israel has to be, in the way Jonathan Peugeot talks about it, it has to be virgin to God, as in dedication. With the way he uses it is not in a physical way. It's like what virginity represents is that you're separated to one identity. You're separated to one telos, or however you'd say it. So, I mean, I think it was a virgin birth physically, in reality, because I mean, it doesn't seem that strange to me if I believe in all the other miracles. But well,
how would you even know?
There's no way to prove it. Yeah, there's no way to prove it.
So Muslims in the Quran, I just found this out recently. So in the Quran, the way you know that Mary was a virgin was when Jesus was born. He immediately announced that his mother was a virgin.
Oh, that's fun. I like that one.
And that was the proof.
Yeah, there are versions of the story where when he's born, there's an emanation of light, like when Paul sees the Christophany or whatever. To me, it's the dichotomy there of oh, he's born a virgin, oh, he's a bastard. This is the same thing happens when he dies, right? Oh, he's king of the Jews. Ha 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 ha. Right, is the thing. And so this is the dichotomy, and it's there when he's born too. And I don't think it's an accident. I think it's intentional. That both are happening simultaneously.
That he is, in fact, that he is viewed to be a bastard when he's actually the child of a virgin.
Right.
Okay. What do you do with the Annunciation and the star and the Magi and all of that stuff?
What
Okay.
do you mean by that?
Okay. Well, he has a lot of, according to the story, right? There's a lot of pageantry when he's born. Is there less pageantry when you're born? And what does this have to do with you and Jesus? Right.
Say that again. Right. There's a lot of what when he's
pageantry.
Born? Pageantry. Right. So a star comes and an angel announces it to everyone. So how do you get the bastard? The Christian story is everybody knew he was born of a virgin. Nobody anywhere in the entire Christian corpus calls him the child of a bastard, right?
Okay, that's a little silly.
Well, so you have to reject. There's no way of not rejecting the Gospels. I'm sorry, it's just not possible.
I mean, I do have my own thing about so when Jesus is born, right? This is around 0 AD, which is the beginning of the age of Aquarius. and he sort of brings in the new age, but like, and there's even a sort of similar thing at the Last Supper where it's like they're looking for a guy carrying around a pot of water, right, which is Aquarius. But to me, like, that's what it means. As far as like people who knew, like, yeah, there are people looking at the stars expecting something to happen. But yeah, like, to me, like, even when the angel shows up, he doesn't show up to everybody. It shows up to like Mary and maybe Joseph, right? And that's it.
So the star is like astrology, and the Magi had studied it, sort of thing, or something.
Yeah.
Who is this Matt Truth preacher? And am I? Yeah. Okay. Nobody is. From now on, I am only putting on people who whatchamacallit, who have their video on, because this is the second bombing we've had.
Oh man.
I don't know why these people feel like this is like, what do they get out of it?
I don't know. So, but going back to the virgin thing, I was like the symbol you have here in your logo and everything. That's kind of how I see it. And when you had up the last hay and the other,
this one,
I can't remember,
or this one.
That one. Yeah. So it's, you have like where everything, all creation is virgin to God. And so then it gives birth to the lordship underneath it. Like everything in creation is. Does that make sense? Like
I understand what you're saying. I just I view the like. I understand what you're saying, but I view it as like, no, it has to be standing up, right? So you have the masculine, and it isn't a virgin thing. It's a bringing the masculine into the feminine thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where it would be virgin is where there's only one masculine, is what I guess I'm saying. There's only one God it's not, you don't have a whole pantheon in your
well,
you're with Baal over here and with Zeus over here.
It's not about a pantheon. It's about like the masculine. I'm trying to like the idea is that, like in Song of Solomon, right? That God is the groom and humanity is the bride. But like, then why the virgin thing? It's like, no, then you have a bride and groom and a consummation. So you're no longer saying that it is a you're no longer saying that the virginity is important. You're actually saying that there's a possibility of other gods somehow defiling the virgin, which makes no sense in a monotheistic context.
But what about Baal?
What about Baal? He doesn't exist.
Well, when God calls Israel a harlot.
Right. Stuff. Because idolatry is wrong and all that stuff. Yeah.
So idolatry would be not being virgin, because you're giving yourself, like, right. I mean, Christians would do the same thing. Yeah. So to where that, so I mean, I believe in the actual, like, it sounds like I don't, because I'm talking in this weird language, but I believe in the actual physical. But I think the importance of it was to represent that's theosis. Mary is kind of a symbol of the feminine, right? And then she's a virgin feminine in that she's completely set apart, not in any idolatry.
I mean,
it makes it too weird.
So
like
it's too loosey goosey, I guess.
And like, what's Joseph doing there? Like it.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
So
Good
Ben
point.
apparently agrees with Roman about the age of Aquarius. I guess the signs in heaven were arranged to align at that time. When Adam named the animals, did he care about word roots, or did he use some other system or pattern? Well, the general Jewish belief is that the names were reflections of the spiritual powers which God had imbued in them. He was recognizing the spiritual makeup of those animals.
So, if I was going to try to plug Mary into theosis, it would look really weird. It would look like there is an idea in like Taoism of like these, of like you're sort of, when you're sort of trying to, they call it immortality, but it's theosis. It's like the same sort of idea. That you sort of form like a spirit embryo, which becomes a sort of spirit fetus. And this is sort of the sort of thing how I would plug it in. But it'd be tricky to get that like with just Christianity.
Yeah. All that being said, too, I want to throw out there, I was brought up Protestant, so I'm not Orthodox. So I'm not speaking on behalf of Orthodoxy or Catholicism or anything like that. So this is my understanding of theosis.
No, this is we are you being a theologian, official theologian for the Catholic Church.
All right.
You are the representative of the Pope in this Bible study.
All right,
and
I'll go get my miter.
all Catholics are bound by what you say.
Right.
So the letter meanings describe the animal spirits. Yeah, I would say that. I would say so. Yeah.
Is there like some complicated Mishnah with all the stuff in it? With like, oh yeah, this is the word for fish, it's dag, and this must mean something about the letters.
I am sure there are teachings, especially in the Midrash, about stuff like that. People think I'm being somehow humble when I say, like, I'm only qualified to teach elementary school in a Jewish context, and I really mean that. I am only qualified to teach elementary school, and like. Yeah, people misunderstand my qualifications.
Is this some false humility thing?
No. Do I sound like the type of person to, like, you know?
I'm just giving you a hard time because I have to speak on behalf of the Pope, but you can't. Yeah. I did have a question. This might go back to something else, though. But this was what popped in my head that I was extremely interested by. It kind of goes back to the beginning stuff you were talking about, and you mentioned Ecclesiastes and the same. This was the Cain and Abel thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you said so. The word vanity, you said is
Hevel. Yeah.
Hevel. Like, and that's basically like it. Like
it is Abel's name.
Yeah.
It is Abel's name. Yeah. So then. Is this what is it? Ecclesiastes
1:2. I'm just looking at chapter 1 here, but then I was looking at because you were talking about the shapes of the letters too, and the head being feminine, and then I looked at Yote. Sorry, that was it. And then so I went down and I was looking at verse 3, and the word. Where it says under the sun, and under it looks like they're all that shape as the hay, and then sun. I didn't know if there was a play on that with Cain or not.
So those letters are somewhat similar to hay, but they are definitely different letters. Although hay sometimes does turn into tough in certain contexts. But yeah, I wouldn't make
okay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't. So but then son there is Semes, right? Or Shemesh.
Shamesh here, yeah. Shamesh. Yeah.
So that is, gosh, I'm not sure what I'm even thinking here. I didn't know if that had a similarity to like to Cain in any way. I guess just because I was thinking, I'm not sure what I'm thinking. Because the word Shem is in there, right? Shemesh. So like the name.
Right, as like name.
Yeah. So everything is under the name or something. I didn't know if it was kind of like everything is under the masculine, because you were saying Cain is
So my idea about Cain and Abel was so you know how Cain you know how okay, what happens is Cain kills Abel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the first question is, why did God let Cain successfully kill Abel?
I mean, you can't punish him if he didn't. Like, he hadn't done a crime, right?
Yeah, but when he tried, why was he able to do it? Like, why didn't God make Abel stronger than Cain? Or even like, let's say he beat him. Like, why didn't God stop him or at least heal Cain, right? Or first of all, why was Cain able to kill Abel? Like, why did God allow that to happen?
Calvinism. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
Second
I don't know.
question.
Tell me. Yeah. Okay.
Second question. So, what was God asking when God's like, "Where's your brother Cain?" Abel. God didn't know where Abel was. God didn't know what happened. Like, why is God asking this question? Third question. Okay, God knows what's happening. He tells Abel, no, you're lying. I mean, he tells Cain, no, you're lying. Your brother's blood is screaming out to me. So what's the correct thing to happen there? God should resurrect Abel and kill Cain. So why doesn't he do that?
So I believe what you think is that he will eventually.
Yes.
And I think that the whole through line of this, especially if you add a few details that you missed, which is that he warns Cain before he kills Abel, and he gives Cain the mark after he kills Abel, is that the through line of this is actually that he's not trying to protect Abel at all. He's trying to protect Cain. Which to me shows that Cain is the one who needs the protection.
True. But what's the point? Like, what's going on? Like, God. So Abel was the one who gave the sacrifices which God was pleased by. Cain didn't. Right?
Abel, well, to me, like when you put it this way, what it starts to look like is that Abel is already perfect, right? Air quotes, I know. And Cain isn't. Cain needs to be redeemed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's actually the whole point of God giving the sign to Cain is like, hey, nobody kill Cain. Why? Because it's actually really important for Cain to live in this world that we have, and repent in order to perfect himself. Because that's what God really, really wants. What God, the story of creation, of Genesis, is God puts us in this world, and he wants us to do good, and he tells us to do good. And we don't. Well, some of us do, And those people can leave this world. Why? Because they will be resurrected when the perfection does come. And they will Abel will receive all of his rewards, including his reward for having suffered, right? For his blood being spilled on the ground. So Abel is actually going to be exalted by being victimized in this way, beyond Cain, who didn't do what he was supposed to do. But Cain has the opportunity to repent, and because he will repent, then in the resurrection, what you will have is Abel and Cain, right? And Abel will be perfect because he lived a righteous life and receive his reward for that. And Cain will receive his reward for having repented of his sin. Those are the two options. You can do things correctly and, in fact, suffer for them in this world, or you can do things wrong and appear to be receiving things you do not deserve in order for you to be able to repent. And then when the veil is lifted, when there is the resurrection, when the day of judgment comes, God makes it all right, which is that Abel will receive his reward beyond that of Cain, obviously, and Cain will receive his reward, which will be less than that of Abel, but Abel was what's the what it says in, I know the Hebrew, like he was healed, Cain was healed by Abel's stripes. Abel suffered for the sin of Cain.
Okay. By his stripes you were healed. This is by his, right?
Yeah.
So when you were talking about all that stuff, when you're talking about all that stuff, the thing that occurred to me was that Cain gives a false sacrifice in the first place. He sacrifices the wheat, and God doesn't like it for whatever reason. And then, interpreted a certain way, you could say that he gives another false sacrifice when he kills Abel, because there is another through line in the Bible about human sacrifice and how it's a bad idea. I wonder if that's the idea behind this, is that he tries to give a human sacrifice, the wrong human sacrifice, right? I do think there is a correct human sacrifice, which is not to literally nail yourself to a cross, but to sacrifice yourself to live this sort of cruciform life for other people. And because of that, I don't even know. Like he has to be afraid of people, I guess, and he has to receive the mark to sort of not be killed by them. But I don't know.
Jason, what are you thinking?
I don't know. I mean, I liked everything you said, Jacob. That seems right to me. And God putting a mark on him, I've heard it was just so that no one would kill him, so he'd kind of stop the pattern of vengeance or something like that. Kind of as a, like.
Well, vengeance belongs to God, and that is actually part of what is important for us to know. Is if we go around trying to if we go around trying to make things right ourselves, we are going to mess it up because we're human beings. And ultimately, we have to have that faith in the resurrection and in God, that day of judgment coming, and God making things right.
Yeah. It's interesting too. The what does he say to Cain afterwards? The ground shall no longer yield its fruit to you, or something like that. So it's
that's Genesis 4 we're in, or 3? Where are we? Genesis 4.
Yeah. So like living in that way of, if you're living in that in the pattern of Cain, the pattern he just established, there's no way that your life will be fruitful. There's no way your future will be fruitful. So you need repentance.
Yeah, but also like just in a more literal way. Like he could stay still, and if he stays still and doing the same things he was doing, he'd be doomed. So God sort of forces him to move and change his life. I know some people think that like the mark of Cain might have been like ironically enough, like sheep, so he could be a shepherd like Abel was. So he would have like a way to make a living, but I don't know really what it was.
Yeah.
Well, I have heard the idea that that it won't. So it says, "Ki ta'avodat ha'adama lo tosef tet kocha lach." It will no longer give you its strength. Na vaned tihye ba'aretz. You shall this way and that.
Yield its strength to you.
So I have heard the thing that like he brought his sacrifice from things from the earth, and he would no longer be able to, because this is what he had done with it. But
okay.
It's actually very interesting to me that kocha there has a dagesh in the hay, has a aspirated hay, which is
what does that mean?
It's a rare thing that happens when there's a doubling of the hay, because so koach means strength, kocha means her strength, because land is feminine.
Oh, okay.
Adama is feminine, right? So and so kocha without the dagesh in the hay could just be feminine of strength, but kocha with the aspirated hay tells you that it's her strength as opposed to feminine strength, which
that is interesting. Huh.
I think you have to learn Hebrew now, Jason.
Yeah, it's very intriguing. It's always been intriguing to me for years. I just and then you get little things like that, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do with that yet. It's just one of those things like, man, I'm gonna have to chew on that for a while. I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you have any immediate thoughts, or?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's also interesting to me. So there are places when, so lecha is how you address people, you address men, and lach is how you address women. And there are places that because of the cancellations, lecha turns into lach. And so in you would never translate the simple meaning to like be addressing, but God is actually addressing Cain in the feminine kind of there, because you'll see it says second person feminine singular to you, so he's calling him you in the feminine, but that's only because of the cancellations. And it's interesting where those stuff like that happens. These are the types of things, like there's a reason why we don't like in Judaism, the first thing you learn is Hebrew, because it's like you just have to learn the Hebrew if you're going to have a Jewish understanding of the Bible. And well, that's part of it. The other part is back before Christianity, we did also, like, we were okay with translations of the Bible, and we saw what Christians did with it. And in reaction, Judaism was like, no more translations. Everybody learns Hebrew.
That's probably fair. I mean, we got good things like The Message and all those, right? Those crazy translations.
So your idea is that Cain is the masculine, right?
Cain, I mean, that's what so Cain, the name, right? She says kaniti ish, right? I purchased. So Eve says, I have acquired a man with God, right? Or actually, you could even translate it onto God, right? And so the way I would understand all of this is that Cain, in his killing Abel, actually is moving into the feminine, and that's why there's all the and like he kills Hevel, which I would say is feminine, and has to return to the masculine. So I haven't worked it out, but there's definitely a masculine and feminine interplay there in my hermeneutic and cosmology.
So my assumption is that, like in Taoism, heaven is masculine and earth is feminine.
Right. Yes.
Right. Okay. So Cain, being masculine, has this power to bring life out of the earth, like God did, right? Not exactly like God did, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And he loses this power when he kills Abel.
Yeah, it's like the older shall serve the younger, right? Like he was kind of supposed to serve and help Abel in a way, right? And instead he killed him. And then in consequence, and if Abel's feminine, then in consequence the feminine's not going to yield her strength to him, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would go back to Ecclesiastes and Hevel Havalim, right? Where were we in Ecclesiastes 3? Were we?
1. We're in verse. Well, we were in
Ecclesiastes.
1:3.
Actually, let's do 1:2. So the verse is literally Havel Havalim Amar Kohelet, Havel Havalim Hakol Havel. So like, yeah, it's vanity of vanities, but it's like Abel of Abels, said Kohelet. Abel of Abels, everything Abel.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Jacob? Because that's so intriguing to me, but I'm not sure what to make of it yet.
So
I think that this world is Abel, right?
Okay, yeah.
The world in which we live is Abel, and it, in essence, I guess, suffers from the iniquity of human beings, and eventually, hopefully, when we repent, it will return and be resurrected like Abel. So the people who suffer in this world, right? They are in fact the ones who are Hakol, who are everything, right? They are, and in a sense, the feminine. But like, am I making any sense?
Yeah, no, you are to me. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
So okay, so this is the same story almost as the rich man and Lazarus, right? The rich man, right, enjoys good things on this earth and suffers in hell. Lazarus suffers on earth and is with Abraham.
Yeah, in a sense, but the thing is, ultimately, really, like, in Judaism, we do believe some people will be destroyed, right? Mm-hmm. And we do believe that some people will, in fact, suffer for their sins eternally. But my understanding is that the people who, like, the worst thing that can happen to you is to be utterly destroyed. And the next best thing is to have a place in the world to come where you realize your mistakes. And the best thing is that you don't make mistakes, right? Mm-hmm. And so your place in heaven, right, in the world to come, depends on really all of the good things that you do. The more good things that you do, the more of a righteous person you are, the better portion you have in the world to come. But if you are completely without any saving grace, then you fail to exist at all. You become not you are annihilated. But if you do have a portion in the world to come, and you did make mistakes, you're eternally going to be punished by those mistakes, because you're eternally going to understand what you are missing because of the mistakes that you made.
Okay. Right. And the other thing, so my understanding is that Hebel means breath, right?
Yes.
Okay. So breath, right, is something you feel in your body. It's something that goes in and out. It changes all the time.
Well, hold on. No. So it's you're thinking of neshama. That's as in breathing. Hevel breath is like the vapor that you release when you breathe out.
That's fascinating. Okay.
So, like, late Hebrew Syriac figurative vanity.
So can I interject a question? So what is the breath God breathes into Adam?
That's neshama. That's
okay. So that's okay. Is that also sometimes is it like ruah, like ruach, or what
ruach
is that?
is different. That's like a wind and spirit.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So one's breathing in. So that's breathing in almost, the first one in Genesis 2.
Neshama, I guess. Yeah, neshima can be a breathing in.
Breathing out or something. Okay.
So yeah, I mean,
probably not correct. Probably splitting it up too much or something, making it too definite, I guess.
I mean, I'm not, like, you're asking things beyond my competence.
Okay. But neither here nor there.
I don't feel confident in saying that.
But this one specifically is more specifically referencing to the exhale, the breathing out, right?
Well, Hevel is like, so, like, if you put your hand in front of your mouth and you breathe out, right? So, like, that's basically Hevel, I would say.
God, this is why I love Hebrew, because it's just, I don't know, there's just something so incredibly poetic about it. And the fact that Ecclesiastes is everything is able. Everything is able. Everything is that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So Ben says, I wish everyone would learn Hebrew. I agree.
That's cool. So what I was trying to get at earlier is, because when we mentioned in Roman, you kind of brought this idea in of the heavens being masculine, the earth kind of being feminine and all that. And so if everything is able, everything under the sun is able, and so the sun is in the heavens. That's why I didn't know if everything is kind of like like Cain over Abel is kind of what we're experiencing. Everything is Abel, like, but is that a bad way of maybe?
No, I think
approaching
that is. So have I showed you guys my Sheker and Emet thing?
I
one is lies, one is truth.
Yes.
The lies can't stand up straight. The truth can stand on its own.
Right. So this world is called Alma de Shikra, and the next world is called Alma de Emet, right? So this world is the world of lies, and the true world, right, is it, you know, so Sheker is all, so if you look at the Hebrew alphabet, so Sheker is so on the bottom, so this is the Hebrew alphabet from top right to the bottom left. And if you, so the word sheker, right, which is the word on top, which means lies, is 3 of the last letters. And the word emet, which is the word on top, is the first letter, top right, the middle letter in the middle, and the very last letter. So truth in Hebrew is beginning to end, and it is all solid because all of them would stand up, whereas sheker is all like towards the end of the alphabet, and all of them would fall over because sheker, lies, are fleeting, kind of like Havel, and emet is permanent, kind of like you might say a kinyan, an acquisition. That's funny, huh? I don't thought about that. And I guess there is that inversion going on, and like the thing is, like, either way, it's like somebody who's trying to be perfectly logical would tell me, either way, I mean, if the story was the other way, you would also be able to say the same things because you keep on doing these inversions, right? But in my mind, the fact that these inversions exist, like, helps me understand things better. And this was one of the things, actually, so when Jason and Mitchell were talking, like, this is one of the things in Jewish hermeneutics, which is the idea that the Bible has a cursory view that you just, first glance you go through, and then you ask questions, and the answer to the question doesn't nullify your question. What it does is actually give you an understanding that's further down the road and deeper and more solid. And it doesn't negate your previous understanding, but actually makes your understanding richer and fuller.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's been my experience for sure. But it's still like, and it's still, like you said, it doesn't necessarily negate the question either. Like, it still calls you to deeper understanding at the same time. It's just,
well, that's the important part. So that's what Talmud is. Like, the Talmudic method is you look at your understanding, you ask a question, right? And that question, once it's answered, gives you a deeper understanding that doesn't negate the question. And that's why the Talmud is a discussion and a debate, and you need what's called the shakal and tarya, literally picking up and putting down, right? Of that. I'm just gonna say it, intercourse.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah.
So, I was gonna say something about the breath with Hevel, and it was gonna be like that, just about impermanence, and like maybe this has something to do with like the breath in your body. But what you said made even more sense, because if it's the breath that came out, then it's like a breath that's already passed away. It's saying this world is like almost already gone.
Well, that's what we mean when we say that God spoke and the world was, right? Baruch Shamar V'Hayolam, the blessed be the one who spoke. And so what does it mean that God spoke, right? He brought something into being similar to how we speak, right? And then it's not permanent, because like nothing other than God can be permanent, right? So when God creates, that which he creates is by nature impermanent.
Okay. Let me think about this. So that's why we're impermanent, is because we are just words. We are that's it. That's all.
Right, and that's what it means when Isaiah says "Ein od milvado." There is nothing other than him. There literally is nothing other than him. It is only an illusion, a veil that we have, that we exist, that we have a real existence, because God is the only existence that's actual. I am going to end the stream in 10 minutes because over a 3-hour Bible study, and nobody's going to ever pay attention to us ever again.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, this was great. I had a good time.
You could say the first hour was almost trying to get the devil out of the technology, though, you know.
Yeah, well, we will probably have to exercise him. I don't know what I'm going to have to do. Roman, if you can be my tech guy, please, and try to figure this out for me.
Did you update Windows?
Yes, that's not the problem. The problem is it may be my driver. We'll talk about this offline.
All right.
Yeah, we'll talk about this offline, but I need somebody who understands computers better than I do to like actually try to do this.
You know who's much better than me at this is my wife. My wife is much better than me at this. This is what she does. But maybe I can put you guys in touch. Maybe she has some ideas. That said, I mean, I can tell you the obvious stuff. Is your
no, it's not the obvious stuff. So I'm routing. What I was trying to do was I was routing my microphone and computer audio into voice meter, and then routing it into actually routing my microphone into a filter that took off the static noise, and then it gets routed into StreamYard and then comes back. Like there's a lot of it's going through several different things.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm doing something not normal. But I was trying to make, because it really does make a huge difference if my mic is going through the stuff or not.
So the people I know who seem to get really good audio quality are in their closet, and they've like covered their closet with like foam stuff.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, if you don't want to do that, then I'm not sure how much advice I can have for you. But maybe my wife knows.
Okay.
Tell her.
No, I mean, it works. It was working just fine, except sometimes it crashes. And when I was Googling, it said it might be a problem with my
your drivers.
But I tried fiddling with those, and I don't know.
Okay. There is software that people have to like and stuff. You figured it out?
I just updated my Windows, and the change I made in my drive, like I deleted some drivers so that it would stop using the. Okay, I need to go back and delete some drivers. Okay. Hopefully that'll fix it for next time.
I have another question real quick. This probably might have already covered. Vav Vav is also masculine?
Most people would say yes.
Okay. All right.
Can you divide it up? Are there like 11 masculine sounds and 11?
No,
sounds?
that's not how it works actually. So it has to do with the tree of life and
So I assume the letters are the connections between the Sephiroth, right?
Okay, so yeah, so but
every time
Yud,
I count, I get like 20 or 21. I never get 22.
Okay,
Am I just bad at
so
counting?
what do you mean? No, so okay, you have to. Okay, now you have to consider the Tetragrammaton. Okay.
All right.
And now let's go back to the thing. Now let's imagine Keter is not there. Chochma, which is on the right here. Okay. Imagine, so that is considered the first yud of the name. Bina and Da'at are considered the second yud. So Bina would be the top of the hay and here. So Chachma, the first Sephirah, would be the yud. The Bina would be the curve of the hay. Da'at would be the small part of the hay. The next 6 Sfirot would be the Vav, which Vav is actually the 6th letter. So it's 6. And then the last Hay is Malchut. So, again, Chachma, Bina, Da'at, the next 6 Sfirot, and then the Hay. Let me move you guys. So, the last Hay would be Malchut.
I'm not sure how that works that way, but I trust you. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to find Malchut. Maybe I'm just bad at this.
So Chachma is top right. Yod. So that's the Yod.
Yep.
Bina would be the top of the hay. Bina is on the left. That would be the top of the hay. Da'at would be the small part of the hay. And then these 6 Sfirot together would be the Vav. And then the last Sphira is Malchut, which is the last Hay.
Okay.
And that's how you end up with this.
But how did you get that, Roman? Why, I'm so lost.
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying.
But yeah, I sort of get
it. We could, if you guys want, next time we can do a deep dive into the Tree of Life, and do Petichat Eliyahu and stuff, which is a part of the Tikkunei Zohar that explains this stuff.
Okay, I'm down. I'm down for whatever. This has been a blast. I've really enjoyed this.
Okay, so next week we are going to start with Petichat Eliyahu, the Tikkunei Zohar, and the Tree of Life.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Okay, we should end with a prayer. Roman, say a prayer.
Say a prayer. Thank you for the opportunity to learn about your word and about Hebrew and about all this other stuff that I don't necessarily understand. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to these good friends who want to also learn about your word. It's so kind to you, and we're so glad to have this. Please give us more. Please let us be together so we can do this again. Amen.
Amen.
Okay.
Roman, it was great to talk to you more. This was great.
Yeah, it's always nice to talk to you.
Yeah. Jacob, thank you so much for doing this and hosting this and having me on. It's been a blast.
It has been a blast. Hopefully, in the future, we will have fewer penis shots.
I forgot all about that.
I'm gonna end the broadcast.
I'm gonna find that